Right now, I have 2 robot lawnmowers in my life. One I absolutely adore and will use to mow my front yard for the rest of time or till it dies, whichever comes first. And the other, which I hate, and honestly will probably let run out into the road someday and get run over because it annoys the crap out of me. Unfortunately for me, they're the same robot lawnmower. This is the EcoFlow Blade robot lawnmower.
Epic filler. Epic filler. I'm totally not gonna forget to put copyright-free music in for this epic filler. Meet the EcoFlow Blade.
It's the first lawnmower from this company, and honestly, what they've managed to achieve on its very first go is pretty darn impressive. It clocks in at just under $3,000, plus an extra sweeper accessory for another $700. EcoFlow was kind enough to send me a review unit. Although they have not sponsored this video, they have no editorial input, and they're seeing this review at the same time you are. The truth is, sometimes I absolutely love this robot lawnmower. It does a good job on my front yard. My yard looks immaculate compared to my neighbor's. Other times though, I just freaking hate it. It has a tendency to go off the rails. It'll run out into the street or get stuck on the same section of my front yard tree every day, or a little bit of hill that's just before a gully. That means I find myself minding the thing just as much as I'm letting it mow the yard. The EcoFlow Blade differs from other robot lawnmowers in 2 main factions. One, you don't have to bury lines. You just drive it around the perimeters of your yard and combine it with a charging base and antenna to get GPS location for your yard. It figures out where it is in your yard and stays within the perimeter, supposedly. The other main difference is its shape. Most robot lawnmowers look like a souped-up Roomba. This thing looks something more like a Mars rover. The idea is between these spiked wheels in the back and the omnidirectional wheels in the front, it won't get stuck on most obstacles that regular robot lawnmowers will. In practice, that's not necessarily true. I've seen it get stuck in mud quite a bit. EcoFlow says it can handle a steep hill up to 15 degrees, and in my experience, that's about right, but I have a section that goes just beyond that, and unfortunately, even though I've mapped it not to go in that area, it has a tendency to wander in there and thus get stuck almost every day. Now through the app, you have lots of options and settings. You can raise the blades and lower the blades, although EcoFlow says it will only cut about a 3-inch high yard, and that is very true. You can also control the speed, although I'm not entirely sure what the point of that is. The entire idea of a robot lawnmower is you let it go, you walk away, and it does the job all on its own. Who cares how long it takes, as long as it gets done and you didn't have to bother messing with it, right? The EcoFlow Blade does have a water sensor in it, but it looks like an off-the-shelf type solution. It's 2 pins in the back, and that means that it won't detect rain until enough water has collected in the little tray that it has for that water sensor. Sometimes I find it mowing even when I think it should have stopped already, but that might be in part due to the fact that I have quite a few trees in my area that keeps it from getting fully rained upon. Oh, I'm gonna stop real quick. So just a second ago, it complained that there was a steep slope, but it managed to start all on its own. Now, I told it to stay pretty far from the edges, but as you can see, it has a tendency to walk right up to the very edge and continue to mow. And unfortunately, it's not all that uncommon for the mower to get stuck on the tiniest little hill, lift its wheels, and come off the side like that. And when that happens, it typically will decide that it's hit a steep slope and stop. Adding to the problems is the fact that since it's only a Bluetooth connection to the app, you won't get a notification if there's any reason that the mower has stopped working. You have to notice that there's a problem. In addition to frequently getting stuck in several places in my yard, it also constantly has charging issues. It'll drive up to the charger and then not get on. It'll go back and forth and back and forth, and then sometimes just stop in front of the charger and never actually properly dock. When it does manage to dock, oftentimes it won't actually charge at that point. you'll get a red blinking light, which suggests there are dirty contacts. There are metal contacts on the mower itself and metal contacts on the charging base. They touch up to each other and pass on electricity. If there's any kind of material, dirt, grass, mud, you name it, it won't charge properly. And its standby time is pretty bad. In this state, if you don't notice, by the time you check on the mower in the morning, it will be completely dead. The weird thing is, it's not always a matter of dirt and mud. Sometimes it seems to be just the way it managed to settle into the dock. A quick shift and fiddle will suddenly take care of the problem and you get a blinking green light again. Now all of that wouldn't be so bad. After all, it's still a lot less effort than actually mowing your lawn, especially if you don't have a riding lawnmower. Now the big problem is that I can't actually mow all of my lawn. To get started, you map the perimeter of your lawn to teach it your yard. But after you mow the first part of the yard, what do you do about your side yard? I have two portions of a yard, partially divided by a driveway. Well, thankfully, it can handle that. All you have to do is map a second yard and bridge them. But therein, I get into a new problem because I also have a backyard. So you could come into here and add a third yard. Here is where you add an additional working space. So when you go to map a working area, you'll see that two areas have already been mapped and it cannot create any more. So if you're like me and you have a front and side yard and a backyard, this mower can't mow all of your yard. Now one area that it does particularly well on is avoiding obstacles. I didn't map the telephone pole that it's coming up on, but it does a good job of detecting it, driving around it, and avoiding it each and every single time. It does, however, mean that the grass around the telephone pole isn't mowed quite as well as the rest. But to be honest with you, when I do it myself, it looks about the same. Here, I'm the obstacle. Detected me, and it's trying to figure out what to do and get around me. Now, if you spend an extra $700, you can get a leaf sweeper accessory, and actually it works pretty well, almost too well. You'll find yourself emptying it every 15 minutes or so because it gets full from grass clippings alone pretty quickly. That is sort of a downside to me because you do have to maintain and be on top of it constantly, but it does speak to the fact that it works very well. I think eventually if you continued to stay on top of things with it and run it maybe every other day, you'd get through a lot of the grass clippings and it would probably go further without needing to be emptied. I think that, but I haven't proven it yet. From what I can tell though, it does a really good job of picking up leaves as well, but again, it gets full pretty quick. I like it. I think it's going to make life a lot easier come fall, but at an additional $700, it's definitely expensive. If you're considering buying it, definitely go for the bundle option because you'll save a good bit of money that way. As you can see, its regular path does leave nice, tight, crisp lines. On the other hand, that's all it does is back and forth. It never does diagonals or sideways. Now, you might be wondering, with everything that I don't like about this robot, why is it that I say I love this robot? And to be honest, it actually does a really good job of mowing the lawn. I'm not a lawn freak. My gardens are basically completely overrun, and I'm pretty bad about mowing the lawn. This is the best my lawn has ever looked because I've been letting the EcoFlow Blade take care of it. And it's super quiet. For reference, this is how loud it sounds. At the end of the day, as long as I'm willing to work through its few nuisances, it does a really good job of cleaning up my yard. And that's what you want in a robot lawnmower. So where does that leave me on recommending the EcoFlow Blade? Well, we're back to the tale of two different lawnmowers. On the one hand, I've got an amazing robot lawnmower that does a really good job of maintaining my yard and leaves me just spending a few minutes here and there taking care of it when it's stuck. On the other hand, I've got a robot that does get stuck frequently, goes out into the road all the time, and worst of all, can't mow my entire yard. It can do my front and my side, but it cannot do my backyard. And that ultimately is the biggest deal breaker that I just can't get past. Remember, this thing costs nearly $3,000, and that's not including the leaf sweeping accessory attachment that's an additional $700. For that amount of money, I could buy a very nice riding lawnmower that would take care of my lawn in about a half hour or so. That's a problem to me. I need two mowers to mow my whole yard. I need the robot lawnmower, and I need another mower to take care of any edges it missed, any spots that it went over, and most importantly, my backyard. I just can't recommend a mower that doesn't do your entire yard. Now, if you only have a front and a side yard, or a front and a backyard, or just one generalized front yard, and you're a relatively flat and smooth square operation, then it might be worth it. Then again, if that's you, you probably could spend a lot less on a different mower and get the job done pretty quickly. That still leaves for a tough recommendation. I admire what EcoFlow has done here, because this is their first attempt at a robot anything, let alone something complicated like a robot lawnmower. And they've done a really good job, all things considered. It mows the lawn, it keeps it immaculate, it does things that I want it to do. But it just falls short in too many places for too high a price. Now that could change. EcoFlow could update the app to allow it to map a third section of a yard or more. There's another competitor robot lawnmower out there that can do more than 2 yard sections and does let you skip burying wires. But you should never buy a product based on what it might be possibly someday if the company happens to update it. You have to buy it based on what it is now, which is, on the one hand, a really fantastic lawnmower, and on the other hand, a lawnmower that just falls too short. If you enjoyed this review, I'd really appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribed to the channel. I have a lot more tech reviews coming just like this, and I'll be covering tech news as well. Until next time, thanks for watching.
Robot to a gentle slope and try again. Start recharging.